Mr. Heimberg. If you have your Bibles, turn to the book of Zephaniah, chapter. That shiny thing, that's my nimbus. All saints. Oh, you know, anyway, sorry. You know how saints have a halo around their head. Anyways, what a glorious time. I was so moved by the incredible work and sacrifice of Pastor Mitchell, Pastor Greg, his staff, the Prescott Church, to make this possible for us, and what it cost them financially and time and effort, and I'm so grateful. Me, so comfortable and so beautiful, you know, and so that we could be here and have this time together. I am just profoundly grateful. Zephaniah chapter 3. I preached a sermon about 6 weeks ago. And after I preached the sermon, someone mentioned that they were delivered from 5 years of anxiety as a result of that sermon. I can't get the bottle cap off. Anyways, was I surprised by that? No, I was stunned by that because it wasn't a sermon on anxiety. It was a sermon on pride. And since that time, some other things have come to me to realize that, now don't get me wrong, not everybody that deals with anxiety has a pride issue, right? But to see how much these things are linked together, and that pride is the source of so much of the anxiety, not just out there, but here, that people feel. Don't feel like now you go, Pastor, I'm dealing with anxiety. Oh, it's pride. Yeah. Okay. But so I want to help you, but I don't want to heal the wound slightly. Right? So it might be kind of uncomfortable, a little bit of this, but it's going to be okay. We're going to get through. Zephaniah chapter 3, beginning at verse 9. For then I will restore to the peoples a pure language, that they may call on the name of the Lord to serve him with one accord from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. My worshipers, the daughter of my dispersed ones, shall bring my offering. In that day you will not be ashamed for any of your deeds in which you transgress against me. For then I will take from your midst those who rejoice in your pride, and those you shall no longer be haughty in my holy mountain. I will leave in your midst a meek and humble people, and they shall trust in the name of the Lord. And the remnant of Israel shall do no unrighteousness and speak no lies, nor shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth, for they shall feed their flocks and lie down. No one shall make them afraid. Sing, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O Israel. Be glad and rejoice with all your heart, O daughter of Jerusalem. The Lord has taken away your judgments. He has cast out your enemy. The King of Israel, the Lord, is in your midst. You shall see disaster no more. In that day it shall be said to Jerusalem, do not fear. Zion, do not let your hands be weak. The Lord your God in your midst, the mighty one, will save. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing. I will gather those who sorrow over the appointed assembly, who are among you to whom is reproach. Its reproach is a burden. Behold, at that time I will deal with all who afflict you. I will save the lame and gather those who are driven out. I will appoint them for praise and fame in every land where they were put to shame. And at that time I will bring you back. Even at that time I gather you, and I will give you fame and praise among all the peoples of the earth, when I return your captives before your eyes, says the Lord. Shields of pride from this passage of Scripture. And think with me for a moment about anxiety and arrogance. You know, conference is a time for refreshing, right? For healing and impartation and challenge, that we go from this place encouraged and faith inspired. But sadly, many times conference is a time of torment and isolation in pastors, wives, and workers. Even jealousy, envies, resentments. And the source, what's the source of that distress? Is there something wrong with a conference? Are we elevating people and making, just so we can make you feel bad that you haven't seen that many people saved? What is it that sometimes you can come to conference and you're not getting help? You're getting resentful, right? You're not getting help. You're feeling dislocated. See, the source of our torment may well be pride, fear in the form of shame. Verse 11, on that day, Jerusalem will not be put to shame for all the wrongs you have done to me, because you will remove from you your arrogant boasters. Never again will you be haughty on my holy hill. There's a link between shame, the fear of how we are viewed by others. How do people see me? How are people going to look at me? We can have anxiety coming to conference. How our pride wants us to be viewed in contrast with what our sense is of how we're going to be viewed. You know, it was a few months before I was saved. I was given some very bad LSD. I guess it's all bad, huh? Anyways, some's worse than others. And in this very, very wicked LSD trip, my parents were at a place on the ocean, and I was home with my younger brother and sister, probably like 8 or 9 at that time. And I am tripping out of my mind, you know, and my parents want me to drive them from our home to Manchester, Massachusetts, about 25 miles. And so I am trying everything I can do, siphon gas out of the car. Car's out of gas, Mom, I can't do it, you know, something, but I couldn't get out of it. And so I am driving my little brother and sister in this little car. I'm going down Route 128, and Route 128, it's a snake under my car, right? As I'm driving, it's a slithering snake. And the white lines, that was like the scales or whatever on the back of the snake. But I knew if I kept close to those scales, and I knew that the tires were made of rubber. They actually were attached. This isn't a snake. I know it's not a snake. And I made it. Obviously, I'm still alive. But after that experience, it was one of the most significant experiences of my life, because when I was done that night, a lot more happened that day, but I laid my head down on my pillow that night, and the thought is, you are a profoundly evil person. Right? You just haven't done bad things. You are a bad thing. Right? That I didn't see, I didn't just need forgiveness for the things that I had done. I needed something that changed the very evil of who I was. And I saw no hope in that. Thank God, just a few months later, I gave my life to Jesus. But here's the thought. It's like that evil inside of us. See, this is what drove that. It was, I didn't want to get caught. I didn't want to get in trouble. It was like, for my survival, I'll kill my little brother and sister. How evil can a human being get? See, this anxiety, that's what it was, right? Fear of how this is going to play out for me. It can be debilitating. Verse 16, on that day they will say to Jerusalem, do not fear Zion, do not let your hands hang limp. Now we don't know quite what that term is referring to, but here's another translation. Don't be afraid, Zion. Your hands must not be paralyzed with panic. What it's talking about is a fear so intense that it absolutely, and anxiety so intense that it actually debilitates you, right? Where you're not able to function. It's like when the Bible talks about your heart melting like water. That's the same phrase that is here. A loss of strength, a feeling of helplessness, a courage melting. Jeremiah uses the same phrase, and he links it with the agony of giving birth. It's like there's a mental pain that can be so intense that is like one of the most painful things a human being goes through. Sometimes it can paralyze, but sometimes it can be manifest in a frenzied activity. It's like Martha, frenzied, frantic, running around, and totally missing that God was in her midst and actually complaining to God about how he was blowing it and not straightening out her life adequately. So anxiety can paralyze. Anxiety can drive us to frantic activity. Because pride is an oppressive taskmaster. It must be served. It is pitiless. It is pitiless. If it is diminished in any way, if pride is assaulted in any way, then it will cause you and I to pay a terrible price. Arrogant leaders ruled by intimidation and fear. And the arrogance inside of our own hearts does the same thing to us. Really, we're talking about the fear of man. That's what it gets down to. The fear of man brings a snare. The idea that it binds you, captures you, and controls you. That what really may be the number one motivation in your life is anxiety that is coming out of pride. And we can come to this time of refreshing and challenge, but tormented by anxiety and shame and fear. What are people thinking about me? Ashamed of yourself, right? You hate you because you make you look bad. Spirit of condemnation, but sometimes it's not condemnation, it is pride. Like we hate what we look like, we think we look like to other people. Maybe you're ashamed of your church. Pastor's wife, ashamed of your church. You're ashamed of your husband. He's not making you look good. Maybe, Pastor, you're ashamed of you. They're not making you look good. And the devil will exploit this. the devil gets involved, a spirit of fear, right? Where it's not just our own mind at work, but Jesus wants to set us free. Let's think about the shields of pride for a moment. That sermon that I preached a couple of months ago, I entitled it, "Where's Your Pride Hiding?" I worked with it with a bunch of the pastors in our area. We get together on Wednesdays very often and we'll work on a sermon together. We worked on that. But it came out of some emotions that rose up in me when I heard about a rebellion in one wing of our fellowship, and just like something just got, it just moved me again. The thought, how can he do that? Doesn't he know it never works? Doesn't he know that he will hurt absolutely everyone that is involved, everyone? And you know what? It'll hurt the best people the worst and the weakest people the worst. The very people who need to be taken care of. And how could he do that? And how could he, doesn't he see, hasn't he seen? And just as I'm thinking about it, I felt in my own mind just the way that you, Kevin, could just be deceived by your own pride. That you could be ignorant. You think you've got an issue, but it's really your pride. It can be lurking unseen under the surface of your life, and you don't recognize it. See, we think about obviously arrogant people. When you talk about arrogance, you pick somebody with their nose up in the air, and they think they're all that and a slice of cheesecake, and they're just like everything about them just exudes pride and arrogance. But that's just a caricature. There are people like that. But those aren't the only prideful people there are. This person who had this deliverance, you would not view them automatically as a prideful person. See, I want you to be free from torment. But my other concern is that you face any pride that can hurt you and hurt others, because it will hurt someone. The nature of pride, that it shields itself. It hides itself. One of the most compelling pictures of pride in all the Bible is in the book of Job, Leviathan. He is the king. This creature is the king over all the children of pride. Verse 1 says, "Canst thou draw out Leviathan with a hook, or his tongue with a cord which thou lettest down?" You get the picture. Here is this, you read all of Job 41. It's a very powerful depiction of pride. But it starts off, it's under the water. Can you bring it up? Right? Can you see it? It is moving under the surface. And then it comes up violently. See, the sermon we worked on was a sermon on Naaman. Right? Here's this military leader of Syria. He's been victorious. He's conquered Israel. But he's a leper. And so he comes to Israel. He is looking for healing. But when Elisha won't come out and pray for him like any pagan general knows what a prophet's supposed to do, right? And he said, he didn't come out, and so he's going to stomp away and go back to Syria, a leper, die, and go to hell. Because, and in his mind, though, what's happening? It's the failure of that prophet. That's the problem. Prophet's not doing their job. Our prophet's not doing his job. Prophet's not treating me how he should treat me. That's my issue. It's you. But The source of your anger is not that Elisha didn't pray for you. The source of your anger was your pride, Naaman. His pride made him that angry. See, how much of your anger, what that's shielding, is pride because of how you have been treated, because you weren't spoken to, because you, how much, who are they think they are, how much of your anger, bitterness, resentment is pride lurking behind? How about self-pity? How much of our self-pity has pride lurking behind? Self-pity is a shield that pride hides behind. You're feeling sorry for yourself can actually be a wounded pride. You weren't treated like you should have been, or God hasn't helped you like he should have. Maybe your pride's hiding behind your sense that you're not being appreciated. You've labored, right? You've given, you've prayed, you've done these things, and yet you're not feeling valued, you're not feeling appreciated, and something's rising up in you. But back behind that is pride. Someone said pride is the dandelion of the soul. Its root goes deep, only a little left behind sprouts again. Only a little left behind sprouts again. Its seeds lodge in the tiniest encouraging cracks. Listen to this. It flourishes in good soil. The danger of pride is that it feeds on goodness. Pride feeds on our own goodness. It can feed our own faithfulness. But maybe it's that critical spirit. No, I know you call it discernment. But just like whoever made that statement about us becoming a mega church, that was an incredibly arrogant thing to say. The arrogance that's how you view what has been accomplished here in what you and I are involved in. The superiority that shows over Pastor Greg, Pastor Mitchell, the whole thrust of our fellowship. Like, you know how to straighten us out, don't you? Like that stuff about Prescott being the reference point and Prescott being the, okay, I knew I was going to have to hear a little bit of this. But you know what I know? You know what I have you, what about this? What, like, can you see behind that critical spirit? That thing you call discernment, that thing you call insight, that behind that is arrogance. Can be behind your anxiety. Can you be honest with yourself? Has anybody ever told you, hey, brother, sister, it's kind of a prideful thing to say? Or anybody criticizes you, bam, they pay for it. So you've let them know, no, yeah, you criticize me and you will pay. Most men will proclaim everyone his own goodness, but a faithful man who can find? Most men, and let's have equality here, and women. I'm told, I know we say men have egos, but I'm told that women have egos too. We don't know, but it could be the most prideful people here aren't male. I mean, it's probably us, right? It's probably, but see, the prophet declares that God promises to remove the arrogant and haughty from the midst of the people of God. And that'll give every one of us pause. That He sees, He fights the proud. He sees the proud hurting His work. He has a way of leaving enough rope for the arrogant among us to hang ourselves. The problem sometimes when you talk about arrogance and pride, the actual arrogant and prideful don't think it's them. They think of some other people. But there's the hope that the Spirit of God can help us. Let's close with the deliverance. So the night that I got saved, I don't know the date. They weren't handing out convert cards at the rock concert I was at. It wasn't a Christian thing. I was drunk at the time. We were there with some people because we knew the band. That made us cool. And but as I'm in that scene, and I am looking around, and it's just not the place you expect God to visit you as a sinner, drunk. But God came into that place, and here's what he dealt with my heart about. He said, your issue is pride. And if you do not give your life to Jesus now, you never will. And you will go to hell. Now, nobody ever talked to me like that. I mean, the nuns could show some scary pictures sometime, but when we're talking about, like, now think about, but here's the glory of that, right? That evil, that profound evil inside of me that I saw during that LSD trip, it got a name. Pride. It got a name. Like, I felt guilty for a lot of stuff that I had done. And I won't go into it just in case my mother's watching the live stream, right? I'm not going there. Actually, Mom, sorry about the trip with Gene and Dave. Okay, anyways, I guess I'm busted. But what the point is that I felt very guilty about a lot of stuff that I did. But I never considered myself a prideful person. I hated myself. See, it wasn't a self-exalting thing, oh, I think I'm awesome. It was simply a thing, I want life my way. I want it my way. And okay, I could maybe try this Jesus thing, but if I can't do what I want to do. See, Leviathan is pictured in Job as an impenetrable monster. Verse 15, his rows of scales are his pride, shut up tightly as with a seal. One translation says, its back has rows of shields tightly sealed together. Pride, shields that are impenetrable. See, our pride cannot be pierced by human effort. Without divine help, without supernatural help, we are subject to pride's domination. It's pitiless, tormenting to us and others' domination of our lives. Benjamin Franklin said this: there is perhaps no one of our natural passions so hard to subdue as pride. Beat it down, stifle it, mortify it as much as one pleases, it is still alive. Even if I could conceive that I had completely overcome it, I should probably be proud of my humility. See, the Lord will remove the arrogant from our midst. But what he really wants to do is to remove the arrogance from our hearts. So he doesn't have to remove us from the midst. This is a wonderful crowd. Be wonderful if all of you were back in January and there weren't any arrogant ones that didn't make it 6 months. But the hope of that is found in Jesus, that he conquered the sin of pride. He conquered the sin of pride that wants a good thing by a God-resisting plan. Think with me. He defeated temptation in the wilderness. He's offered the kingdoms of the world. He has offered absolute exaltation, King of kings and Lord of lords. That's a good thing. But it's by a God-resisting path. See, the devil offered the man, Jesus Christ. You understand, he was a man. God in the flesh, but man. The kingdoms of this world available to him, and he can get them by avoiding the humbling, humiliating, infinitely painful death on the cross. You don't think that was a temptation? If we don't think that was a powerful temptation, then we don't get the incarnation. We don't get how much of a man Jesus was, 100% man. No, he didn't have a sinful nature. But if that temptation meant anything, it meant that his heart could be moved to exalt himself over the plan of God for his life. If we don't get that, well, we don't get the significance of the incarnation and the significance of his refusal. What a powerful thing that he defeated pride's temptation in the wilderness. And then in the garden, he submitted his own human will. He is now something about the fullness and the intensity of what's going to happen. It's all the sins of humanity are going to be placed upon him as he is going to infinitely suffer for the sins of humanity. A zillion eternities in hell come upon him. And the separation of his fellowship with God, when he's going to take all of that and he's going to wrestle with that with his human will and say, not my will, but thine be done. That is so powerful, and he did that for you and for me, for my pride. And then he went to the cross, despising the shame, in order to destroy the soul-corrupting sin of pride in our hearts. He submitted completely to the Father, bearing all of our arrogance and pride. And he didn't just die to forgive us for our pride. He didn't come to just forgive you your pride. He died to defeat it. He died to set us free from it. The Lamb defeats Leviathan. That's so powerful. The Lamb defeats Leviathan. That Lamb of God defeats that monster that is in every one of our hearts. I don't care how meekly you may present yourself, how accommodating a personality or temperament, it's in every one of us. But the Lamb has power to pierce the shields, pierce that resistance, right? Expose that behind the self-pity and the critical spirit, behind the anger and resentment and torment and anxiety, behind that, it's pride that Jesus can pierce through the shields. The issue comes, can we be undone? Do we really trust Jesus enough that we could come to him and be completely unraveled like Isaiah before the revelation of the Son of God? He sees the pre-incarnate Jesus Christ, right? The glory of the second person of the Trinity. And he is woe is me, I am undone. My lips are encrusted with filth, and I live among a people just like me. And right out of the mouth, of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Those filth-encrusted lips come out of a filthy heart. You know, and at that time, Isaiah had been a prophet for a while, but he had a conversion. And out of that, the angel took a coal from the altar. Right, that blood had been sacrificed on that altar. That's why there was a flame there. Blood had been shed on that altar. But there was fire there that caused that blood, the sacrifice of that blood, to ascend to heaven. In that coal, there was blood and fire, blood and spirit, but touching the lips of that man, not only forgiven, but something imparted to him that gave him a different spirit. Because that's our only hope, is the work of the Spirit of God. You know, the thing that captivated me about this text was verse 9. For at that time I will change the speech, that's literally the lips of the people, to a pure speech, or pure lips, that all of them may call on the name of the Lord and serve him with one accord. Now when you read that, I don't know if it strikes you the same way, but I think I hear of one accord. I think supernatural language. I think call upon the name of the Lord. I think Pentecost. Supernatural language of one accord. Right? How can you be one accord if there's pride? You can't. Everybody's got to serve you. But see, this is what the Spirit of God can do. See, these verses they're to be fulfilled at another age, right? These are not even going to be completely fulfilled in the church age. This is talking about something far more glorious than anything this side of eternity. But see, that's the glory, is that the Holy Spirit is the earnest of our inheritance. It's the earnest of what we will one day experience in the fullness of the millennium, the fullness of the new heavens and the new earth, that right now, by the Spirit of God, no, we can't have all of that. No lions sitting down with lambs right now. Right? No little kids playing in rattlesnakes' nests, right? That's not happening. But by the Spirit of God, this thing that's being described here can be experienced in our life. I will leave in your midst a people humble and lowly, and they shall seek refuge in the name of the Lord. Like the Holy Spirit will produce in us, He can produce in us a humble and lowly spirit. Again, you hear the echo of Jesus' words in those words. Like you and I coming to conference, we've been beaten up and abused by our own arrogance and pride. And Jesus says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. And take my yoke and learn of me, because I am lowly and humble in heart, and you'll find rest for your souls. Jesus, I died to set you free. But if you will link with my heart, with my character, by the Spirit of God. It's the Spirit of God. He is the one who produces the character of Jesus inside of us. We can't do this. Religion won't do this. Just trying to make yourself humble, you'll just make yourself obnoxious or see, here's the hope. That we've had an experience. We've been born again, baptized in the Spirit of God. There is now inside of us the Spirit who has determined to fight our flesh, our arrogant, prideful, self-exalting flesh. We can't count our own ability, but we can believe in Jesus Christ and His pride-defeating work on the cross, that He was willing to humble Himself unto death, even the death of the cross, and that blood has shield-piercing power. But that power, that blood is made effective in us by a miracle of the Holy Spirit. It's the miracle of the new birth that makes that alive. Do you know there's hope for arrogant people? That's one of the most faith-filled things I've ever said. There's hope for arrogant people because of the blood and because of the power of the Spirit of God. So you can embrace this by faith. When you come to conference, here's where there's the hope of how you deal with that Leviathan inside of you. But here's how God really views you. The Lord your God is in your midst, a mighty one who will save. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you by His love. He will exalt over you with loud singing. One translation, the Lord your God wins victory after victory and is always with you. He celebrates and sings because of you. He will refresh your life with His love. See, you might come into conference feeling like a piece of dirt, feeling so low, like such a failure, so inconsequential. Through Jesus Christ, right, you have been made accepted in the beloved. Right? God loves you with the same love that he has for Jesus Christ. God delights in you like he delights in Jesus Christ. That's what's happened to us in salvation. Whatever insensitive thing somebody says to you, like, how many are you running? That's not where your dignity lies. It doesn't lie in how many you're running. It doesn't matter how often you get called upon to preach revivals or anything like that. It's not how big your church, your dignity, your worth is in who you are in Jesus Christ. He loves you. You know, I remember Pastor Greg telling the story. You know, he's on his way to Pioneer and Launceston, Tasmania. You know, he's driving across Australia to go, and he stops by the home of a good friend who is out pastoring, and this gentleman says, Greg, you're going to get there, and God is going to just break you. He is going to, I can't think of all the words, he's going to mash you, it's going to suffer, and he's missing it, and then out of that something might happen, I think. And Pastor Greg said to himself, no, God likes me. And of course he likes you, Pastor Greg, but I'm talking about me. But see, he's no respecter of persons. He likes you. Maybe not as many people like you as, no, really, as you wish. Maybe some people you really want to like you, they don't. But that's life. But the one who really matters, he likes you. He loves you, and he's for you. My son John is pioneering back in the Boston area, and he sent me a text a couple of months ago, and with a picture, and there was a picture of a pond. And I said, you know what, John? I used to walk around that pond and pray. And I said, you know, and I'm just texting him, and I remember one time just at that pond, and I'd take stones, and I'd confess my sins, and throw them into my sins in the depths of the pond. You know, I'm a college student. I don't know what's going to become of my life. It's before I was in the fellowship, you know, and so I'm praying, God, forgive this and I'm throwing these things in, and so I just asked him, you know, did I leave any stones? Are there any? He said, no, you know, there's a few left. He says, now the kids, my grandkids, are skimming them across the pond. And it just moved me so much that here over the cemetery of my sins, that here my son is back in there pioneering a work for God. My grandkids skimming rocks across the cemetery. That is the mercy and the grace and the love of God. Amen. That's all that I have, Pastor.